Friday, February 11, 1983, will obviously go down in the annals of winter service as one of the severest winter blizzards to bombard the Northeast. For many, it was to be a miserable ordeal of waiting it out helplessly, then digging out, slogging around drifts and slush. But for two people who were committed to moving the truckload of furniture and household gear from eastern Long Island to Florida via a U-Haul truck with a car in tow, drive shaft disconnected, it would prove to be a magnificent ordeal. For two people, myself, the driver, and Miss Pat Farrell, who was making the move, accompanied by her declawed deaf cat, Minx, set out early that Friday evening before the storm peaked, confident that we would make it to New Jersey Turnpike before the weather could overwhelm us. Pat and I are long family friends, and I had offered to help her with the move. It was a weekend, and with luck we could make Florida in about 30 hours, and I would fly back by late Sunday or Monday. But the real story is not about us, but some very special people from Brooklyn. The race against the blizzard was on, and we were winning, but for a fateful decision en route. With Sunrise Highway fast becoming impassable, we opted to use the Belt Parkway, in spite of its ban to commercial vehicles. We made a stop near Flatbush area for gas and relief. The Parkway service station was open, though not operating, and it was overloaded with fretting, stranded motorists looking for some way home. We couldn't refuse. We could accommodate one, but we took two gentlemen, two strangers, thrown uncomfortably close to each other with one common goal, to get to their respective homes safely. But we had to exit the Belt Parkway because one lived on 8th Avenue and something Street, and the other on 10th Avenue and 65th Street, Brooklyn. We got the first man home slowly and with relative ease, but time was fast slipping away, and the streets became a maze of stalled cars and piling snow. The truck with the car in tow began slipping, sliding, and laboring as we had to poke along. Fighting even the shallowest of grades, we made it to 10th Avenue, turned right, and our troubles began in earnest. After one block or so, we reached a point of no return. Snow plows had obliterated the side streets and the driveways, and no longer able to back up, we could only hope to get as far forward as possible. We crawled along to about 81st Street, then bogged down helplessly. We churned away, fishtailed, then no longer moved in any direction. This spot was to be our alien world for the next 12 hours. It had enveloped us completely. Our remaining passenger, Mr. Catapano, left to trudge the rest of his remaining 15 blocks or so after having offered to put us up for the night. We could not leave the truck, the car, or the cat and abandon in this dilemma. Some form of help might still come along. We nursed the remaining gas to warm us up, but ran out all too soon. It was 2 a.m. We huddled and squirmed and tried to pass time talking and planning for the coming day. It all sounded so pretentious, only the streetlights glowed while the winds howled and the snow blew wildly. The windows inside the cab glazed over, then coated up with ice as thickly as the outside. Minx was propped on a towel on the dashboard, but his exposed coat kept freezing to the windshield. We all shivered almost uncontrollably at times. Pat and I smoked cigarettes in sequence in order to snatch the slightest hint of warmth. Our shoes and socks and jeans had been soaked for hours, and they thawed and crystallized at will. Then we had to make one urgent attempt to relieve ourselves before morning. Fairly easy for me, but for Pat it was a minor crisis with wet clothes and waist-deep snow drifting around the truck. But she managed. We dozed intermittently and silently prayed for daybreak. At about 6:30 a.m., Pat was the first to hear it, a car motor running and the sound of shoveling. I rolled down a crusted window and had my first glimpse of Steve Dinalo, a young, 30-ish, stocky dynamo, curly brown hair peeking out from under his New York Jet ski cap and brown eyes. I called to him and he briefly explained our situation. Asked to use his phone and he reluctantly at first agreed. I noticed the name below the doorbell and his house number, 8104. Pat and the cat remained in the truck while I savored the first feeling of warmth in the Dinalo kitchen. I called the U-Haul people, but it was too early for any action. By now, Steve's wife, Anna, and their young teen daughter, Danelle, had appeared, and later a sleepy-eyed younger son named Mark. I recounted our story again, and Steve offered us to stay there until the arrangements could be made with U-Haul for the tow truck. Anna set about making breakfast and hot coffee, the first of several pots. We got Pat inside and concluded our introductions. Steve made a couple of calls to decide if there was work that Saturday morning. He is in the carpeting business, and he was scheduled for a doctor's office job that day. He would go in anyway. With chains on his car, he literally blasted through the deep snow, blocking his driveway, and he left for work. It was now 7:30 a.m. The morning wore on, and after several more calls, our prospects for getting help from U-Haul was growing slimmer. Though they were making sincere efforts to get to us, we were far down the list of about 30 calls for help that they were dealing with. By noon, Steve called home and found we were still there. He was coming home with something to eat. Pat and I sensed we were fast outstaying our hospitality. Minks was still in the truck, but the sky was clearing and the sunlight warmed the cab. The street was alive and bustling with activity, mostly neighbors clamoring about, digging themselves out in their machines, out of the enormous snowbanks. The atmosphere was akin to Christmas. Kids and youngsters were squealing, snowballs were flying, roughhousing, people helping people, relieved at the end of the snowfall. Pat and I made respective phone calls to relatives, assuring them we'd keep in touch. Kathy, a friend of Danelle, arrived, and the two offered to get some gasoline for the truck. Shortly after, Steve arrived with lunch, mounds of assorted cold cuts, salads, loaves of bread, and soda. He insisted that we all eat while we worked out some alternatives. Still, Pat and I felt disappointment and helplessness, but this feisty Steve reassured us that the fight had just begun. After lunch, Steve and I went out to assess the problem. He was quickly bounced around, recruiting friends and neighbors, not taking no for an answer. Armed with the whole arsenal of shovels, steel bars, picks, etc., all set to dig out the truck and the car out. We unhitched one from the other, and with me in the truck, revving and rocking, all that muscle eased the laden truck onto a clear, flat patch. The car, of course, was dead weight, and with its drive shaft disconnected, we left it there temporarily. Steve and I half-heartedly having a burned out, Steve and I half elatedly took off to find an operating service station. I was leery about having a burned out clutch from the night before, not to mention the gas and the oil depleted. With the bravado of a Sherman tank, Steve at the wheel, we bounced and rumbled the truck up and down the neighborhood he knew so well, till we found an open station. We found one and got the thing serviced. The clutch was all right, but we had a broken fan belt, one of two, so we could still drive till I would later replace it. We headed back and found the crowd of friends and neighbors still milling around, now all caught up in the challenge to get the situation resolved and to get us on our way. It had become their problem. I was deeply moved by this sincere show of solidarity, and with Steve engineering the project, we rolled that car up behind the truck and hitched it up again. I sickened at that all too familiar sound and feel of spinning wheels, just not enough traction. How much more could these gritty, marvelous people endure before realizing it was not their problem? Undaunted and more determined than ever, I'm getting choked up, they crowded around the truck and the car, young and old. They heaved, they grunted, they growled, they cheered as we inched onto spots of traction. Steve barked for me to get Pat from inside the house and get going. She had fallen asleep at the kitchen table, and Anna got her to bed only minutes before. Half day she clambered out. We gave hasty hugs and kisses to Anna and the kids and got their address and phone number. Outside, a neighbor, Jack, would drive us in his car while Steve, up ahead in the truck, would spearhead us to the horizontal bridge. The friends and neighbors, all well-wishers, now were cheering us from the stoops and the sidewalks. Go Florida, fun and sun, happy landings, good luck. Grinning, holding their tools in the air, waiting. At the entrance ramp, Steve stopped to climb down from the truck. Again, hasty goodbyes all around, and we were at last off to Florida, happy and yet heartsick and choked up at that display of compassion by strangers. We eventually made it. Pat now comfortably settled in Pompano area, joined by her teenage daughter Jamie and with a super son, Bob, and daughter-in-law Mary living nearby. I'm back home on Long Island to the Steve Donald family and the friends and neighbors around 80th, 81st, and 10th Avenue who pitched in so unselfishly. Thank you all. You are truly blessed, and you made our ordeal magnificent.
What about minks?